Hi, everybody. I'm Walter. I'm the Dutch mentor, and welcome back to the Smart Performance Podcast, where S stands for self-care, M for mindful growth, A for adaptive learning, R for rhythmic operation, T for a thriving community, and P for performance. I'm really happy to have Jossie with me today. We're going to be diving into the topic of finding happiness and clarity around your purpose, or maybe at times you need to scrap your whole plan and design a new plan with great clarity, which fits right into what we're talking about. And of course, as always, I encourage you to go online to the Apple Store, find me, the Dutch Mentor, just one word, the Dutch Mentor, download the app. You can find all of these episodes and a whole lot more for just $1 a day. Come find me over there. Jossie, thank you very much for joining me today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. So I am an executive and leadership coach for technology leaders focused on, I usually work with women in tech, engineering leaders, and founders and executives. My career journey, though, is I was a full-time software engineering leader for the first 22 years of my career. And now I also do that fractionally as well.
So you get to do both things you love the most. And exactly that's what I do too. I work in healthcare primarily, of course. But again, our audience are emerging leaders, right? Those people who are still working their way up the career ladder. And too often they get stuck in what I call into the valley of despair when they get trusted from being high-performing doer into a leadership role and say, oh, what now? And you and I are going to talk a little bit about those people who are maybe in that journey but need to find real clarity around their destination, their next destination, and of course to find happiness in the role. It doesn't make a difference if you're in banking, IT, healthcare. Leadership is leadership. You need to have fundamentals. So tell us a little bit about your insight, your process that you work with your clients around finding that clarity and purpose and happiness in your role.
Yeah, so I like to look at it from multiple perspectives, right? I think one is, and I love that the M is around mindset in the title, because part of it is looking at the mindset, right? I think we're, at least in the tech industry especially, we're kind of taught success means your career goes up to the right, you keep getting more titles, more money, more pay, and that doesn't always equate to joy. I'm a big follower of Cal Newport. He's a professor of computer science, but he also writes a lot of books, one of my favorite being Deep Work and also Slow Productivity. And he calls it life-centric planning. And I really abide with that, which is instead of starting with, okay, what's the career? And then trying to wrap your entire life around that. Your career is just one part of the puzzle piece. What do you actually want your life to look like? And then how do you build the career capital through work, looking at what are the different aspects that you want to be doing on a day-to-day, and actually design your life where career is a part of it, but not career is the entire focus, and then you're trying to like scrap together happiness and joy around it.
I would never guess that you have an engineer. So that is well said. So I want to take a little bit because I think the struggle starts for most people that they get fall into that trap. Way too many kids. I'm out there doing what my parents want me to do. And they find they're really not happy in what they're doing. They would like to break out of that. I always say, listen, we have to go back to your why, right? What is your true deep purpose in life? What is it what kind of life do you want to live? If you want to be a drifter and just work from part-time on the side and explore the world, well, then set yourself up for success. So talk a little bit about those people who are struggling. And many of them have fallen to the trap of married, kids, mortgage, car payment. They just don't see that light at the end of the tunnel. They feel they're kind of trapped. How can they re-engineer their life without compromising that safety that they need in order to be able to support their families?
Right. And so one of the things is like life-centric planning does not mean like let's throw everything out and try to like restart from scratch, right? Like, hey, if you're 19, you're just starting out and maybe you want to be scrappy and try new things, like I get it. But as you said, like this is a person who's maybe married, has kids, like has a mortgage. I always look at it as, okay, where do we want to get to? But what are the small steps that we need to take to get there. And so looking at it from the career capital point of view, let's say someday you want to do something like what we're doing, right? Where you have a part of it is still kind of in the corporate world, and maybe you want to run your own business on the side or something like that. Maybe you look at, okay, what are the skills I've gained along the way that can help me accomplish my goals? How could I set aside, let's say it is, like I said, starting a small business on the side, or maybe eventually you want that to be the full-time thing, right? How can I start showing, oh, hey, this is the thing that can make me money, right? And what are small ways I can prove that? And how do I take the skills that I've already built up in my career, in my life, through it like having 5-10 years of experience doing things, like what are the unique superpowers that I have? And one of the things I always tell people is sometimes we're really bad at recognizing that in ourselves. So ask trusted colleagues, mentors, people you respect. If you're a leader, talk to the people who report to you, who always are looking up to you or you think are doing well. And the people you trust, ask them, like, what do you think makes me uniquely me? Like, what do you see that I do well? And then think about how you can lean into that in designing the life that you want. And also, it's also about looking for, like, what is the joy in the day to day too. So for me, I love to learn. And so I look at it as, even if I'm having hard times, even if things aren't going really well, how can I add a little bit of the things that I truly enjoy into my day to day to create that joy for myself?
Listen, you owe that to yourself. I'm very much the same way. As you can see, I have airplanes and helicopters. I've always wanted that. I had to find the right time to do it, but also took some risk, some courage, and some action on my part to be able to go forward and learn how to become a helicopter pilot, how to become an airplane pilot, and that continuous learning. The key thing is that you want and encourage people to dream big, but you need to act small. And acting small is about, yes, maybe you live that paycheck to paycheck today and you're stressed out about it. But if you want to get out, break free from that, you have to start thinking about that strategically on how can I take these small little steps. First, finding that joy in every day, because time is the only thing we'll never get back. And two is to start working on that on a day-to-day. So is there a formula that you have set, from an engineering standpoint? Because I know all of you love to have Gantt charts and point-to-point kind of thing. So Y equals a function of X, right? We all know that. So what variables do you tell people to start looking at first before they start diving into the deep end and say, oh, where's the next paycheck coming?
So first, spend some time looking at, like, what is the end goal, right? Like, where would you like to get to? And one of the problems I have with a lot of, like, planning guides and things like that is it tells you to break down, like, every single step between where you are right now and your end desired goal and map it all out. I believe that for most people, if they actually knew what every single step along the way looked like, they'd actually go be accomplishing that goal along the way. And so that's what gets people unmotivated and stuck, is they're like, I don't know what the whole plan is. And that's a little bit where it's daily consistent actions, having a little bit of trust in the process, and then, like, really knowing your why that gets to success. And I said the daily consistency, right? Because it's really about regularly being like, what is the next thing I need to be doing? Not what is every step between A to Z. What is the next thing that's going to get me closer? Maybe it's having some conversations to get me more clarity. Maybe it's a skill I need to learn. Maybe it's I need to test something out, and then planning that thing, and then be reflecting, okay, this got me closer. Or maybe sometimes it doesn't get you closer, right? But you always end up with more information by taking action. Where I see so many people get stuck, and it breaks my heart, right? I know so many people who want to do something else. And, like, I'll sit down with them and I'll be like, oh my gosh, here's a million things that you could actually be doing with what I see. Because again, having someone else's perspective like can really help you see. And then I'll talk to them in another 6 months or a year, and I'm like, okay, so what did you do? And they're like, oh, I just thought about it. And thinking is not the how you're going to actually accomplish things. You can't think your way to success. And so it's literally being willing to take those daily consistent actions towards your goals. But it's not about finding the quote unquote perfect action. And I think this is where sometimes like the engineers and logicals get really stuck is they want to over optimize, right? We're great at optimization problems, right? But then we try to over optimize the actions where if instead we just took action and figured out, okay, like, oh, this isn't working. Like, let me tweak it. So I'm not just saying like just do action blindly, right? But like looking at it and reflecting. But it's really that action piece that allows us to be successful. And I think the other side, and especially if somebody's living paycheck to paycheck, right, is you do have to realistically look at finances and actually look at, okay, what are my base expenses? Where else is money going right now that maybe it doesn't need to go there in the short term and I can invest in some long-term success, right? They always say like it's like planting a tree. The best time was like 10 years ago. The best time is today, right? So the best time to actually start saving, even if it's a little bit, is today. And I see often when people are struggling, they don't want to look at the numbers. But if you don't look at the numbers, you might be missing something, right? And I mean, we live in a world where it's really easy to like have subscriptions you don't know about and all these like little things that you don't think about, but they add up as well. So I always tell people like part of your life goal planning actually needs to be willing to like look at those numbers on like at least a monthly basis and see like where are things going.
Yeah, listen, the two rules, right, is that I can work with any person and almost guarantee I can save you 8 hours a week. I can work at anybody's finances and almost dare to guarantee you can save 25% of your overhead expenses. I think that what it comes down to is that 70-80% of the things that we want to do never happen or don't happen to the extent, partly because our behavioral capacity falls well short of that, right? And I use that, the equation that high performance or performance is a combination function of a technical skill and behavior. Often we know what to do and how to do it. We just don't have the behavior to support it. And that's where the real change needs to take place, that you have to put your feet in the water. You have to, in order to test it. And I think the greatest example out there in the real world today is look at SpaceX, right? SpaceX, is an engineering company. They truly believe in fail fast, fail forward. And through their rapid iterations, they have built likely $1 trillion company, right? While there are other companies who started at the same time and they're still stuck in that engineering. They need to have a perfect flight the first time out. And I think that's our lives too. We need to really think about that. Now, you specialize mostly with working with women. By the way, 85% of my clients are women as well. So that shows you the smarter of the two species by coming to a coach or a mentor and asking for help, while the guys are stuck in their head and their pride and ego get in the way of asking for help, right? So when it comes down to women, what is it that you see that their struggle is, and how do you help overcome that struggle? Because obviously men and women are different, and women have take on a whole lot more, especially when it comes down to if they have children. How do you help them? What would you suggest to them? How can they get started and build that confidence so they can too go out and do what they love to do?
Yeah, and so with women, what I often see is almost this guilt in prioritizing themselves, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's the, well, I need to take care of my children. I'm supposed to be the good, the good wife. I like putting, if you work in the workplace, even putting work first. And so often I run into like, oh, and I'm the rock. I'm the stability. Like it's not on me to create this instability. And yet often I speak to like very high achieving women who've now been doing this for 20, 25 years. and who are just like, I don't know, like, I have no joy in what I do on a day to day. And I first approached them with, again, like some of those things we talked about, like what would you be doing? And again, I'm not saying like quit your job tomorrow with no safety net, but how do we bring you closer to what brings you joy? How can you start adding some of that in? And it starts sometimes by being willing to ask for support, right? Because oftentimes I see women trying to do it all themselves. And when you're trying to do it all yourself, it is hard to add something else in. So sometimes, literally, the first step is having a conversation with their partner and saying, like, hey, I could use a little bit more support around these things. Or looking at, like, hey, instead of spending this money going out to eat, could we get a little bit more support around the house so I can do some of the things that I'd really enjoy doing? And so often it starts with, like, what are some of these small shifts that are needed so they can make the time? And also, it's the mindset too. Like, it is not selfish to like prioritize yourself. You're not saying you're going to leave your kids stranded on the side of the road without support. But for them, I always tell people, like, what do you want your kids to value when they grow up, right? You want them to value themselves and prioritize themselves. And they're going to see how you behave and how you treat yourself as they're growing up. So lead by example. And that can really sometimes help with the mindset shift. And you had mentioned something earlier around like, hey, we just like keep falling into our patterns, right? And the other thing I tell people is like, don't beat yourself up about that because our brains are actually wired for us to not
Hmm.
change, to keep us safe. And so it's like with building habits and things like that. It's like you have to not just force yourself into it. It's like, what are the limiting beliefs that are getting in the way? And so what are the mindset shifts that we need to be putting into place to make that a reality?
Yeah, it is. They're very powerful. It's easier said than done.
A
I
hundred
think that,
percent.
as Brene Brown tells us, is that listen, we should not go at it alone. And I think it's the best decision that people can make is to, short term or long term, finding a trusted partner, a trusted mentor, coach, and really explore that you owe it to yourself. You only have one life to live. So with that said, listen, we could talk about this for hours, but we have to wrap it up at some point in time. Where can people find you, Josie?
So the best place to find me is either on LinkedIn, just look me up on LinkedIn as Jossie Haines, or on my website, josiehaines.com.
Okay, excellent. And any parting thought? And I'd love to hear a good, deep engineering thought.
Well, think about your life like an engineering problem, right? It really is. You get to engineer your life. It's almost like a little Lego puzzle, right? And so think about it's all the little things and you get to define your version of success. It is not up and to the right. That is nobody's true version of success. And also get off of social media a little bit, right? Like that's actually not going to help you get success. If you took that, like the best piece of advice for people, if you took the hour you spend on social media, most likely for a lot of people, or just scrolling, and spent that hour towards your goals, you would accomplish so much in the next year.
Listen, that's the theme of my business. In just 15 minutes per day, you too can be the leader you always wanted to be, or the leader that your team needs to thrive. It will thrive under. But that goes with anything. I always say is like in 15 minutes a day over the next 120, 180 days, I can teach you how to be a pilot, fly helicopters, whatever, design a spaceship. It is, yeah, get off that social media. Josie, thank you very much for joining me today in conversation. It was really informative. Again, the key here is you have to dream big, you have to act small, you have to go out and actually start doing it, but you don't need to do it alone. So thank you very much for that. And I encourage people to go visit Josie's website and continue the dialogue and connect with her on LinkedIn. Again, thank you everybody for listening. You will find us right onto all of our social media accounts where you can find podcasts. And of course, in my app, which is now available on in the Apple Store, The Dutch Mentor, all one word. There is volumes of information that you can metabolize in just 15 minutes a day. Thank you. We'll see you at the next episode again. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.